Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Mile High Game Guys board gaming podcast. I am your host, Adrian.
I am Zach.
And I'm Jeff.
And we're here to review a board game.
And
To ruin a board game.
Ruin.
Yeah, this is the first of the Mile High Game Guys Ruins series.
Well, technically titled that. I mean, we've ruined
It's the first of
other
the titled,
things.
yes. Which, for those of you who are tuning in and did not hear us talk about this, or actually, I forgot to add the addendum, so nobody knows about this. So, for
God damn it, Adrian.
So, this is one of our spoiler episodes, which we are now calling the Mile High Game Guys Ruin. And so, like, our previous, like, Pandemic Legacy spoiler episode would have been a Mile High Game Guys Ruin Pandemic Legacy Season 1. Our Time Stories episode would have been Mile High Game Guys Ruin Time Stories, whatever module. So this is the Mile High Game Guys Ruin Exit the Game, the Secret Lab, the Pharaoh's Tomb, and the Abandoned Cabin. Because we are going to talk about all three of those.
Indeed.
Now, we're going to do this one a little bit interestingly. So before you immediately oh, spoilers, I'm going to just not listen to this episode.
Shut it all down.
Before you do that, the first half of this episode, we're going to actually review the games like we typically do, free of spoilers, where we talk about components, rules, things like that a little bit. It's pretty much the same for all three of them. They're very much similar components, similar rules, similar everything.
And we will kind of blob them all together so you don't know what we're talking about on specific ones, and we'll just generally talk about all three.
Yep. And then we will then very clearly announce when we are shifting to the full spoiler, ruining all of everything portion of the show, so you can cut it off before that.
Yeah. Once we get there to the actual spoil part, if you don't like it, you can be like, all right, I'm going to exit this podcast.
Nice pun, Zach.
You thought my shit was bad earlier.
Oh, I know. No.
Fuck, man.
Yeah, no, I liked yours. Yours was cracking me up.
Yeah.
Zach just makes me look at him like,
Yeah.
why?
That's why.
Fuck you, buddy.
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
Got your claws right here, bub.
Shink, shink.
Yep.
Didn't watch that recently.
Anyway.
In part of our review should probably start with
Escape rooms?
escape rooms in general. We've done them.
Well, I haven't.
You haven't
You've
done
not
one?
done any of
I've
the
never
escape
done an
rooms we've
actual, real, physical escape room.
Man, fuck you.
Yeah.
Like
Garbage person.
God.
Fuck you guys for not ever inviting me.
I don't know if that's true.
I mean,
I don't know if that's true.
in my defense, I've just been invited.
I've never hosted any of these.
So I just have friends that want to do it, and they're like, Zach, you look like you could actually contribute. So
Damn it. Go to hell, Zach. Fuck right off. But no, I've wanted to do one for a long time, and I've never had the opportunity. I have been invited to some of the ones that you guys were doing. The one time that I was really invited, I was unavailable. The second time, it was like I was sort of invited, where the person was like, oh yeah, I forgot you actually wanted to go the first time, but then you just couldn't, and I thought you didn't want to, so I didn't even invite you. Unfortunately, we're full, but if there's an open spot, I'll let you know. And there was never an open spot, so.
Yeah. So an escape room is basically you and a bunch of friends get locked in a room for an hour, and then there's a bunch of locks and a bunch of puzzles. You complete puzzles, you unlock locks that get you other pieces for other puzzles. You continue, and maybe you win or maybe you lose. A lot of times there's a TV with a timer on it that the people that control the escape room will kind of give you clues because these things are fucking hard.
yeah, they started in Japan in 2007.
Wow, that new.
Yes.
Okay.
And then in 2012, like in the early 2000 teens, I guess,
Yeah,
whatever.
I like how a decade ago was new.
Well, I mean, like it seems
This thing in theory should have been around for a while, but I guess.
Well, I mean, I'm sure it's been around for a while, just it wasn't always for fun.
oh god.
Murder puzzles. To be fair,
I
most
feel
of
like
these,
they didn't have puzzles. It was just you were locked in a room and then you died.
Yeah. Then you're tortured to death.
Yeah. It wasn't like, oh, let's see how these things connect into here. Oh, there's a nut. There was no.
Well, and they have been around for a lot longer in more of a video game
Yes.
sense.
Yeah.
Like
Well,
they're
yeah. Yes. Those
click and solve puzzles.
Yes. The actual escape rooms were based off of those.
And then the room on iOS.
Yeah.
iPad. Very similar.
Yes.
So they've been around for a while. They are based off of well, they came from a video game into the real life, like Zach said in 2007 in Japan.
Like most video
That's
games.
exactly how I said it. Yeah.
I am not shocked this came from Japan.
Yeah.
and
then it
it's now spread
to-
everywhere.
Mhm.
Like small towns have escape rooms now. Like Megan's hometown, well, not her hometown, but like where she went to school and the bigger
Michigan.
town near there in the UP of Michigan, not a very big city, has like 3 escape rooms.
Wow.
Like I don't understand how these small towns
Denver
support
barely has
this.
more than 3.
Right? But yeah, they've kind of become this huge, big sensation. And then now they've transitioned here into board games in a variety of different forms. The exit the game ones that we're talking about is one of those ways that it's being done.
And I think a large part of that is regular escape rooms are like $25 to $30 a person for an hour. And it's, great. You're like, oh, let's go do that. But
fun.
It's fun. But if it's like the original one I did was like some sort of outbreak, they had like 6 other scenarios or something like that. And I was like, that's like $150, $180 right there. I don't know about that. So
yeah, and it's a little bit more of a time commitment to do in real life because you got to make time to you got to schedule everybody to get together, go there, do the thing, and then.
But they're really cool. And so I know when they first started announcing that they were going to try and do that in a board game, it was like, how is it going to actually is it actually going to feel like you're trying to do an escape room or something like that, or like are the limitations of it just being a board game, or especially like with these, it's basically like it's almost all cards.
And like actual escape rooms, these games can only be played once.
Yes.
Yeah.
But the price point on these slightly nicer.
Yeah.
Yes.
So the exit games are the ones that you can technically you can only play the exit ones once because you're going to write on cards, you're going to cut cards up or tear them up or whatever. You're going to physically destroy and ruin parts of this game.
Yeah.
Much like any legacy game.
Yes.
Much like a legacy game.
It can be painful for people that love to keep everything 100% right, but these games are meant to be destroyed.
As opposed to other escape room type games like Unlock or something where they're not legacy style destructive, but you're going to solve the puzzle, so you're not going to necessarily want to keep it, but there's at least a room for it maybe to be on the secondary market. Like you and your friends can do Unlock and then pass it off to like another friend in your group or sell it on the secondary market.
The same sort of thing like Time Stories.
Yeah.
So
these exit ones though, they're legitimately one-time use, and then they're not going to be fit to be used again.
No.
So like one difference for this one versus actual escape rooms is that like an actual escape room, if after the hour you're done, if you didn't finish, you didn't finish. Like at least the game's not like, oh, you stopped playing after an hour, just throw it in the garbage now because you can't finish it.
Yeah,
there are other groups that are waiting to play. Like they have to schedule these things. There's a reason that that can happen.
Yeah. So instead, they have a sliding scale. They have a scale of points, a score that based on how many clues you use, whatever. We'll come to all that as we talk more about the actual game. We've gotten a little far afield here.
It's fine.
As happens.
But the main reason I want to talk about this is like pricing and availability right at the front. These games are destructible, one-time use, and are super affordable.
Yeah, they're around 10 for the first 3 here that we're going to be talking about. They're about $10 each, depending on where you get them. You can get them a little cheaper. You can get them a little more.
$7 to $15.
Yeah, and if you're playing you can play up to 6 people. So that is at most like $2 a person if you want if you want to try and subsidize it in some way.
Or realistically, there's 6 available right now. You can all each buy your own, and then you're all in for around $10 to $15.
Exactly. Yeah.
And then you've got 6 hours of fun. But we'll come to all that.
Yes.
So exit the game. The 3 we're talking about today are 2016 games from designer Inka Brand and Marcus Brand. Artists was Sylvia Christoph and Franz Volhinkel. Might have messed that one up. And published by Cosmos here in the States. They play 1 to 6 players and take 45 to 90 minutes. And Zach, you got a quick rules breakdown? Rough idea of how these play?
Yeah.
Good luck.
Right. And exit the game. You're stuck in a room with one goal: solve the 10 riddles that are preventing you from leaving. Using the riddle cards and all available items from the box, you'll be putting in sequences into a decoder. This decoder will then give you a number, which leads you to a matching answer card, which will tell you whether or not you actually solved the riddle. It can be an X, which means you got it wrong, or it'll give you a correct answer, which will then give you more riddle cards and additional items to solve more puzzles. If you ever get stuck, there are going to be hint cards available to you that will give you additional clues, additional information, and then eventually just the solution if you can't figure it out. Once you have figured out the final puzzle, you escape.
And so, yeah, that's a really basic kind of overview. I mean, these games aren't complicated in the general mechanics. It's the individual puzzles that get tricky, which we'll save talking about specific puzzles for that spoiler half that's coming up. But yeah, the basic game is, hey, you're solving puzzles and trying to get out. Like, it's not that hard. So first impressions, what were you guys kind of thinking going into these games? I guess I can start this one since I played them first.
You
way back?
Yeah, you played it more than a couple days ago.
Yes. Yeah. So the first time I played, we played the Abandoned Cabin, and this was at HeavyCon back in the spring. And basically somebody had organized through the HeavyCon Slack channel doing an exit quote unquote tournament. It wasn't really a tournament in that there was no like progression. It was more like, hey, we've got 12 people. Let's split up into 3 different games of 4 people each and see who gets the best score. My group did not realize we were playing for best score. We thought we were playing for best time, which we won. We finished first. So I still think we won. But we used a clue card, and as we'll get into in the review, clue cards are interesting as to whether or not they actually count against you or when they count against you. And
question, if you thought you were playing for best time and that's it, why not just immediately go through all the hint cards to this
honor system?
Okay.
I mean, it was an honor system. Like, I don't know, because you're not supposed to use that.
I'm just saying, if you thought it was best time,
because that takes the fun out of it. Because again, honor system. Like, I mean, that's really what it was. Like, we didn't occur to us. We're not terrible people. Me and the 3 people I was playing with, none of us were like, oh, hey, we're playing for best time. Let's just flip over all of the hint stacks and get the answers to all of the puzzles.
I'm not saying I would have done. I'm just saying that if you thought you were doing best time, obviously that's the best way to get the best time.
Not if you're trying to play honorably, But anyhow,
you get what I'm saying, right, Jeff?
I got it.
You got it.
So I played this back at Gen Con way before I knew that we were going to be discussing it. So I wasn't necessarily like approaching it from that perspective. But when the guy floated the idea of doing one of these, I was totally down. Like, I thought it sounded like a bunch of fun.
Was that your first time?
That was my first time
hearing about it or anything like that? Or
no, I'd heard of the exit games, the unlock games, other podcasts and things talking about them before that, and I was interested in them. But really, like, the chance to sit down and play a game that's solving a bunch of puzzles, like, kind of cooperatively, like, that's something that seems to me like it'd be right in my wheelhouse. I used to love, when I was a kid, those online like flash click and solve games where you're basically solving puzzles and you've got to find the clues and then figure out what clues go with what puzzle and put it all together. I loved that kind of thing. And so finding a way to incorporate that into a board game sounded awesome to me. So I was really excited going into it. That was kind of my thoughts.
Okay.
Zach, how about you?
So I'd wanted to play these for a while, but that also, when I had heard about them, I still hadn't done an escape room yet. So I was like, that sounds cool, but I also don't know how the escape rooms really work and stuff like that. And so I finally did those. I did a couple of them, and I was like, oh, wow, these are cool. I hope whenever I get a chance to play these, it lives up to the interestingness of the escape rooms that I had played. And I was really curious to see if the fact that it's just, a series of cards and some stuff, that it was like, does it actually work, or will it fall flat or anything like that? So I was definitely interested, but I had a couple reservations before I started the first one.
Right on. Jeff, yourself?
I didn't know much about these games before we played. I knew they were much like escape rooms. I knew they were destructible / one-time use only. I remember you had played them and played the little like tournament thingy. But I didn't know exactly how these games would really play out. But I had done escape rooms, and I thought, board game escape room, that sounds interesting. I was a little iffy on like destructible one-time only use kind of board game, but gave it a shot.
But no. Moving on from there, let's talk a little bit about the components of these games. Basically, all three of the ones we played, Secret Lab, Abandoned Cabin, and Pharaoh's Tomb, just to reiterate, all basically have the same set of components.
Yes.
There are 3 decks of cards. There's a riddle deck, an answer deck, and then a hint deck. The hint deck you spread out into a bunch of different piles based on the symbol that's on them because they relate to specific puzzles, and each puzzle has typically 3 cards. Sometimes there's like 1 card that's like a general overarching, like, hey, this
you can't get the first puzzle, you are done.
Yeah. The answer deck is, I don't know, right around 20 some cards, 20 to 30 cards.
About 30,
like,
I think. Yeah.
And they vary, like you mentioned in the overview, Zach, between like wrong answer, correct answer, and then there's some that you didn't quite touch on that like you flip it over and it shows like a bunch of different puzzles and you have to correctly identify like, you know, all right, we're solving this puzzle on this symbol or this item, and then it tells you to go to a different card, which will tell you whether you're right or wrong. So that way they can kind of maybe funnel multiple puzzles through the same card.
Yes. It was, I was like, I don't know. It's going to take too much to try and get that
describe
in one little sentence. So I was like,
and that's fair.
Yeah.
It kind of like choose your own adventure. Go to this page.
Yeah.
Is this so and so correct? Then go to this page, and then
yeah. And then there's the riddle cards that have the actual puzzles on them, and
that's the main probably meat of the game.
Yeah. And they pair together. It's not like each individual riddle card is its own riddle. A lot of times you'll need to acquire 3 or 4 cards to solve one riddle.
Yes.
There's a rule book, which when you first open the box and you take the top off, sitting there is the rule book, and it says very clearly on it, like, don't look through anything else, read this first. The first like page is a little blurb that sets up the specific one, like the abandoned cabin, like how did you end up in this abandoned cabin? The Pharaoh's Tomb, how did you end up in a tomb? Like basically just a little bit of flavor. And then the rest of it is like, hey, if this is your first time playing these games, here's what you do. Like, you know, spread these cards out in this situation. Don't look at anything yet. Here's some basic rules of how you play the game.
And once you read this rule book once, you have it for all of them.
Yeah, aside from that flavor text. Aside from the flavor text, it's basically the exact same wording for all the rule books.
For the base mechanics.
Yep. Then, once you've read that info, that introduction, and you've read through the rule book, then it's like, all right, you're ready to begin. You know, once you have everything all laid out on the table correctly, it tells you to grab pencil and paper, maybe some scissors, and then you're ready to go. And
get scissors.
You definitely want to have scissors. And all 3 of the ones that we played, spoiler alert, you want to have scissors. You can play like when the one I did at HeavyCon, we didn't have scissors. We ended up using a pocket knife and very carefully, but like we wished we had scissors. Like you're going to be taking things apart.
Components?
Cutting things up.
This doesn't come with scissors. Get scissors.
But yeah, the quality of the component. Well,
there's the
so
code
the
wheel.
other things that are in there. There's the code wheel that's in all of them. Then there are strange objects, which I'm just going to leave it at strange objects. They vary a little bit from game to game what exactly they are. Those stay in the box until you receive them as part of solving a clue.
Yep.
But
various things.
Typically like cardboard pieces that like real thin, like card stock, really, not cardboard, card stock that you use in various ways depending on the game.
And all of them come with different ones, and they're all different for each one. And very custom.
Yeah.
But so that's an overview of what's in the boxes. All the components are good quality. The cards are all reasonable quality. You're not shuffling anything, so they don't need to be super great in that regard.
The answer cards, it's clear whether you got it right or you didn't. And if you did get it right, you immediately know what new stuff you need to add to it. And you know when you're done, too.
Yes.
And I do have to say, all the components are reasonable enough for this being people like them knowing this game is going to be played once and then never again. It's not any real fucking top of the line, high quality.
I mean, I think that's why I
components
use
to
card
any of
stock versus
for like the strange
cardboard.
objects. Yeah,
but
like
I think it works well.
the rule book pages, and then all of the like scenario specific rule books, scenario journals, or whatever
I
you
think
want
they're
to call
just
them,
called journals. Yeah,
are all real flimsy, but that's on purpose.
yeah.
I'm actually, one thing I'll say very positively about them, the card quality, I think, like just from handling them, like granted, like I said, you don't shuffle, so I haven't shuffled them and really like messed with them, but they're good quality cards considering this is a game you're only going to play once, and there's probably 50 to 60 cards in the game total.
Yeah.
Like, there's a solid amount of cards in this game, like, and they're good quality. I've played games that are meant to be replayed over and over that have worse card quality than the Exit series.
Yeah, there are about 60 cards of just the ones that you use, not counting the clue ones, which are, 30 more cards on top of that? Like 90 cards in this, each one of these boxes-ish, that you probably, depending if you use like all 3 clues for every puzzle, like you're not even going to look at.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah.
You know, so the components are solid.
I do have to say the cards that they used for this were probably nicer than they needed to do.
Certainly.
Yeah.
But yeah, that pretty much sums up components. You know, at least again for these 3 specific games, we haven't played every game in the Exit series. There's 3 more that are available right now. I assume that, you know, we've played 3 out of 6 and they've all been good. I got to assume they keep that quality up across the series.
And then they're just like, we did it. Fuck everything else.
Yeah.
Let's just make our money.
Betrayal 5.
Yeah.
So let's move on here a little bit. Let's talk about the rules. And rules teach. There's really not much to cover here. This is going to be pretty brief. Zach's little rule overview. This is one of the first games that we've reviewed and covered on the show here, where there's not really a lot else to say about how you play the game
Without hard spoilers.
without spoilers.
Yes.
Yeah, but the rules are exceedingly simple. You start off with no cards, nothing. Like you divide them into the pile of the answer cards,
Blue,
the pile
green,
of the
red.
riddle cards, and then the several piles of the clue cards. And then you take that little journal and you open up the first page and you read, and then you start solving puzzles.
You have the journal and the decoder, and you just go from there.
Yeah, and then as you solve puzzles, like they'll give you more cards and more things.
And the game sort of, it's the game's that specific game's rules expand from where you read what you read out of that journal.
Yeah.
Yes.
But I mean, even as you go along and as you're solving these puzzles, the rules are largely the same. Like you're looking for 3 numbers that you can put into this little 3-disc code wheel.
Yeah.
Reminds me of putting in codes of old PC games.
Yes.
Yeah, kind of.
The decoder wheel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go to this page and then put in the like 3rd word of the paragraph, and then you can install Star Control 2.
Yeah. And I think one thing too is that because it's so simple in terms of how you progress from, you know, when you finish a puzzle to going on to the next one. I think especially like with the decoder, like how the decoder works and how like you can't really brute force your way.
And they recommend that in the rule book.
You can.
I mean, you can.
They're 3-digit combinations.
Yes, but I mean, like
we joked about that in the 3rd one we did, where we got to a point where like we clearly knew what 2 of the numbers were.
Yes.
It's like
Just brute
in
force
10
the
options we could brute
10.
force this.
Yes.
Like it's not like once you solve a couple of the numbers, you could, you know, if you're close, you could brute force it.
No,
That takes the fun out of it.
Yeah, and it was something else I was trying to say.
Oh.
No, not brute force. That it feels like you don't just accidentally get them right. I guess what I was trying to say.
No.
At least the 3 that we played, we never accidentally stumbled onto a card where we grabbed one and we're like, oh, I guess we somehow figured it out.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, we always had a pretty good idea. In fact, it was more often than it was like, oh, we've solved this. Nope, we didn't. Go back to the drawing table.
Yeah. I do find it's sort of ingenious, because it's only the 30 answer cards and the decoder that you're able to be like there's all these ones that could be, and then you're like, okay, it's not this one, it's not this one, it's not that. Okay.
Yeah.
So you have to find the right one in order to get to move along. So
The only other thing I really want to say for rules or rules explanation, when I played, like I said, it was part of this tournament, and the one guy had played before, and he kind of went around from table to table just to make sure people are playing along and doing things correctly. And so when we played, I sat out of the abandoned cabin that we played as the group. Like I was at the table. I read like the intro stuff for everybody and participated a little bit like that. But I stayed out of all of the puzzles because I'd done it before. I knew the answers, or more or less knew them. There were some that I had forgotten. I was like, oh yeah, that's how you solve that. And I was like, they solved it. And I was like, oh shit, that wasn't at all how you solved it. You can sit down and play this right out of the box with nobody having played. You know, I mean, I didn't end up interfering really at all in Abandoned Cabin. I know when we played ours, though, like the guy had to come along at one point and was like, hey, you're way overthinking this, or like, you know, maybe think a little bit bigger.
I know you did help in one instance of you basically were just like, don't forget about this. And then I was like, oh, right. And then, which we can get into later. But.
Yeah, it's hard to say what, like, because part of me wants to be like, hey, if you're going to sit down and play this blind, you should know, you should keep this thing in mind.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's part of, like,
I think that clue was, remember there's scissors on this table right now.
No, we're thinking of something entirely different. Well, at least I'm thinking of something different.
I remember that being something that was said.
Right.
Be like, oh, that makes that way easier.
Is that what you were talking about, Zach?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was something. So there's a benefit to having somebody who's played, who's not playing, to be like, all right, guys.
And that was also the first one that we've done of these.
And that was the only time that's necessary.
Yeah.
Like just because they're all played enough, like that you get that in your
yeah.
brain.
Like it definitely
we didn't want to cut anything up, and then we knew when to cut anything up, and then we cut too much up.
Yes, we as an entire group cut.
Yeah,
too much
that's what it was.
But yeah, I think that pretty much sums up rules and stuff. Like I said, there's not a lot here, rules overhead wise,
until we get to the ruining
the
part.
puzzles itself that we got to say. So gameplay itself, we played 2 of the games with 6 players. We played 1 of the games with 5, which I guess technically we played the first one with 5 because I wasn't playing.
Yeah.
But there were 6 people at the table.
And when you played the first one, how many did you play? 4. Okay.
Overwhelmingly on BGG, well, overwhelmingly with a small sample size, they're typically listed at best for 2 to 3. Jeff, you said you felt you didn't notice any detriments from playing with 6, granted having never played at any other player count.
No, Zach, you had said that like playing with 6, there might not be enough for a lot of people to do, but in a lot of the situations, puzzles could be completed by like 2, well, you can split off into groups, and that's what we do in a lot of escape rooms. It's like you split off and do this and that, and there's a lot of different objectives and multiples that you can do at the same time. But a lot of times we had all 6 of us sitting at the table trying to bash our brains against one puzzle and still couldn't get it done. With 2 or 3, I could see it being more involved and interesting, but player count from 2 to 6, I still had plenty of fun at 5, plenty of fun at 6, plenty of fun at 5.
I think I think part of that too is also just, you know, the group that we were playing with. If it was like 6 strangers together, I could definitely see like, you know, someone's just like, oh, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. And then there are like maybe 1 or 2 people that are like, oh, well, you guys all took that. And
you're never more than juggling 2 puzzles at a time. Maybe
I think
3.
Yeah. I would say 3. Yeah.
But there's usually like 2 people can be doing one thing at once. And there's plenty of other stuff to be doing during the game. Even if you're just sitting there with the decoder wheel and just being like, hey, put in this number. It's like, it's still fun enough to put in the decoder wheel.
Yeah. And this is one of those things too where it comes into play. Like I've never had a game of this go longer than an hour and 20 minutes. Like our longest one that we did was like an hour and 17.
An hour 19.
Hour 19:30.
Oh, that's right. It was just under the 120 mark for the scoring.
Well, it's 60 plus 19 is not 120.
Yeah. Like, yeah, fucking Jeff. I still can't believe he did that.
Oh, is that what was happening?
Because we finished at 79 minutes, but Jeff's like, oh yeah, 30 seconds long.
I'm fucking retarded.
Yeah. He saw an hour and 20 minutes. He's like, oh, 100, that's 120 minutes, right?
Clearly, that's what I just did myself.
Yeah.
So you're not alone, Jeff.
Yeah, when Jeff said that, I was literally like, wait, what are you talking about? He's like, yeah, and I was just like, what the fuck?
It's like 79 minutes.
Yeah.
Point being,
Just under 2 hours.
Yeah.
in an hour and 20, they're only an hour and 20 minutes. So even like playing with like being the decoder wheel person that everybody goes through, like, and you're solving puzzles typically quick enough. Like every once in a while, then it'll bog down where everybody's scratching their heads a little bit and trying to figure things out. But even if you're the decoder wheel person, like you're going to be doing enough, and it's not that long that you're not feeling left out.
Yes.
I could see like, so when I played at HeavyCon, I was playing with 3 people I had just met. So that one felt more like, even at 4 players, that one did feel a little bit more like there were times where it was like, well, I don't have anything to do, because people were much more like, whereas when we played, like Megan was sitting right next to me. It's like Megan and I would be solving a puzzle, or like Aunt Julie were solving a puzzle together.
Yep.
You know, it's like if you play with a group that knows each other and is capable, like comfortable with being like shoulder to shoulder, huddling over this. Like Julie
let's fucking
posted a
figure this
picture
out. Yeah.
where like 6 of us were like heads together, huddled over this. Like,
check out Twitter for those pictures, by the way.
You know, so it does definitely depend a little bit on the group, but overall, I think that gameplay is fine across most player accounts. Don't play it by yourself. Like,
I mean, you can,
but
for a personal challenge, if you really wanted to. But I would say these are more fun with like a group of minds together.
Yeah, I would say it's only because you only get one shot at each of them that you should try and do it with some other people.
Yeah, well, and then I think
everyone can throw in their own advice on said puzzles. And multiple occasions, everyone threw out like, you're forgetting this, and then they're like, fuck yeah, and then they just get it, and then it's like, you're welcome, you fucking dumbasses.
Or the flip side of that, which also happened almost at least once per game, where somebody was like, oh, no, you're doing that wrong. Do it this way. And then the person finished it doing the way they were, and that was right. And it was like, yeah, I'm glad I didn't listen to you, fucker. Like, clearly, you're wrong. And it was interesting to see, like, playing with a group of people, how everybody approached puzzles, some of these puzzles a little bit differently, and who was, like, correct, who was almost right, and then who was just off in left field, you know, doing their own thing and had no fucking clue.
One of the people that we were playing with, Julie, like when we did the actual escape rooms, she was just, according to her, like she just didn't help at all. Everything that she
just kind of wanders around.
Well, she'd wander around.
She said she did a lot of things, but they were all the red herrings.
That's what I mean. Is that she'd be like, yeah, I found this, and they're like, no, that doesn't actually matter.
Yeah, I guess we didn't ever really talk about like actual escape rooms. There's like a lot of clues that just have nothing to do with anything else. This game also has a lot of that, where it's just like we used this little tiny part here and this one here, and then all the rest of the page was completely useless.
Yes.
Yeah.
Then that happens a fair amount. Like which helps keep you from like just guessing. Like, oh, this page has like one equation on it. That's clearly the equation that's going to solve it. It's like, no, this page has 10 equations, and until you get the right clue, you're not going to know which one is the important one.
Yes.
Or just a bunch of useless information that aren't used for anything.
Yeah. But yeah, no, like her story was funny where she was like, doing the actual escape rooms, it was all red herrings that I solved. And then she was able to actually contribute more in the exit games.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Anything else you guys want to chime in on for gameplay?
Clues, we didn't use a lot of them.
No. In fact, clues are, I think, a poison pill. Like, and we did this in all 3 of the games. Like, you early on in the game, you come across the first like tough puzzle, and you're like, oh man, we can't figure this out. Like, what are we missing? We feel like we have all the information here. Like, we should be able to get this. And you can't. And then somebody's finally like, all right, well, should we flip one?
We've been here for like 15 minutes.
Yeah.
And
everybody's like, yeah, let's flip it. And then finally everybody agrees, and you flip it, and it's like, you need to have all of these things to solve this puzzle. Because that's the first clue card is always just like, make sure you have everything you need to solve it.
Because, because if you're like, oh yeah, we have these 3 things and we just can't figure it out, and then you flip out the clue and it's like, all right, you need these 4 things, and everyone's just like, oh, fuck, okay. Well, that's why we couldn't figure it out, because we were missing something.
Yeah, so we're not ready for this one yet, set it to the side. But in all of our situations, it was like, yes, you have everything you need. And so it's like, all right, well, shit, back to trying to solve it, and then we solved it. And then we never used another clue the entire rest of the game.
So the like one sort of rules thing that was sort of iffy was how, because the score is based off how how long you take and also how many clues you use.
Yeah.
The rules they say something like if you flip over a hint but it doesn't tell you anything new, you didn't use it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And that was sort of hard to interpret because it's like if it's telling you need these 4 things, if you have all 4 things, technically it's not telling you anything new except that it's telling you don't need anything else. So
Yeah.
that is new information, but it's also not. It's sort of vague in that regard.
Yeah, and that's the worst thing with this. Like, if I had one major complaint about this game, it's that technicality. But it doesn't matter really unless you're playing like in a tournament like I was, where
Yeah.
you're actually competing against someone else.
Yes.
Otherwise, who cares whether you get 7 or 8 or 9
Yeah.
stars?
Yes.
But it is like I guess maybe in the later clues where it like tells you like, oh hey, you need to arrange the numbers this way. And you're like, okay, well, we did that. So that clearly didn't tell us anything new.
Yeah.
So that one doesn't count.
Yeah.
That's the only way I can think of. I think if you flip it once, you got to count the first card because it tells you definitively, like, you have the information, now figure it out. Or you don't have the information, maybe wait a little bit. But yeah, we did that in all 3 games. The first hard puzzle, we beat our heads for like 15 minutes and we're like, let's use a clue. Oh, we have everything we need. All right. Let's spend 5 more minutes. Oh, we solved it. And then everything else just falls into place. We never use another clue.
One other thing I'll say is that it seems like a lot of these puzzles are sort of gated by other puzzles. That it's that there are definitely times when it was just like we finished the first couple puzzles, but then like the third one you need to finish before you can do any of the other ones, or you even know what the other ones are. And so it's always a little frustrating if that one takes you a while, nobody else can do anything until you figure it out.
Yeah, like if you imagine like an hourglass shape, like you get a couple puzzles early that everybody can work on, but then it narrows down to that choke point. And then, like you said, it's typically one puzzle that gets passed around the table a couple times where everybody goes, well, shit, I don't know. Or like, well, maybe if you do this, no. Maybe if you do that, no. And then once you finally solve it, it's like, all right, now pull out these 4 puzzle cards that now give you 2 more puzzles. One of those gets solved immediately, and there's 2 more. And then all of a sudden, everybody's back to doing everything until it bottles down again right at the end, where you're like, all right, this is the final puzzle. Solve it.
Yep.
We're out. We're done. Well, let's talk about final thoughts for this portion of things. Then we'll go into the ruining everything.
Yep.
So, final thoughts, Jeff. Let's start with you. What were your thoughts about Exit?
I think these games are super awesome. You can pretty much throw gamers, non-gamers, just kind of anyone that can sit around a table and talk with friends for an hour to 2 hours into this and have a good time. You don't need gamers to play this, I don't think. As long as anyone is generally puzzle adjacent. I mean, if you like crosswords, you can put someone in this game and have a good time. You could throw this in with your aunt and uncle at Thanksgiving. And at worst, if you've played this before but want to introduce other people to it, like Adrian did, you could just kind of play moderator and just kind of hang out with other people and watch them play the game.
Man, and I had a blast doing that.
Yeah, and your entry level is like $7 to $14 for this, which is almost nothing for most people. For this kind of game, like I'm glad this game did super well because unfortunately you can only play them once, which is probably the worst part about it.
Yeah.
And I just hope they come out with more and more of them.
Did you feel like you were doing an escape room during it, or like did it still feel like it was just
the escape rooms that we've done are usually more involved. I mean, I wouldn't call it escape room light,
right?
But I would call it escape room adjacent.
Okay,
for sure.
Okay. You still had that sort of feeling.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Especially with everyone all working together and just kind of trying to solve puzzles. It was
pretty much just the limitations of the components and the fact that it's small and stuff like that.
It's in a box.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. A tiny box.
You're not wrong.
Yeah.
Zach, what about you? What do you think?
I really liked it. I really like the one-time use of it because it goes full bore in terms of what you have to do, like how you manipulate things and stuff like that. I really like that. I felt they were really inventive. That each time it was new things. That like it was like
The dial was the same.
The dial is the same
and whatever.
But I after I played the first one, I was like, oh, this is sweet. But then in the back of your mind, it's like, okay, well, what if it just sort of plays out the exact same
in the future
ones?
Yeah.
But it was just always like things I thought about previous ones. I was like, will this work in a future one? And more often than not, no. It's you have to keep trying to figure it out. It's not like if you do a couple of the other ones, you're like, oh, okay, I sort of know what to look for, which I really liked. And I would definitely say out of these three, do the abandoned cabin first. I think that's the best intro one out of these three.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And then afterwards, either of the other ones I think would work. I think the tomb was probably my favorite of the three. But yeah, we can get into that other stuff later. But yeah,
right. So for me, I mean, same thing. Like I really enjoyed these all around. I enjoyed doing the abandoned cabin at HeavyCon with people I hadn't met and like doing it as a competition against other teams. I enjoyed moderating the abandoned cabin with you guys playing. Like an hour's not that long. So, and the abandoned cabin you guys finished in, I think, under an hour.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of the easiest, like it's a great one for introducing how these games work and get you thinking along those kinds of puzzle lead lines. But sitting there, like reading the rules to you guys, reading the introduction, like sentence, like, I can kind of get into that because I love reading thematic, like flavor text stuff. I really enjoy doing that in games. And then sitting there and watching you guys work your way through these puzzles, especially ones where either I actually did know the right answer or I thought I did, even if I was wrong. And then just like be like, oh man, you're right there. Like you said the right thing like 3 times. Yep. Just do it. Like it's interesting, kind of frustrating, exhilarating, fun thing. And I'm rooting for you guys. Like I want you to do well, but at the same time, I don't want you to do too well because I don't want you to do better than when I did it.
Which I think we did.
It was pretty much the same. Star-wise, we got the same star points. We finished in under an hour and we used 1 clue. You guys finished in under an hour and used 1 clue. It's the exact same star rating.
Oh, we finished faster. And according to you, it's all about...
I don't remember exactly how fast we finished. I don't know if you actually did.
It's all about time.
Yeah. Anyhow, then for the other ones playing the Pharaoh's Tomb and the Secret Lab with you guys, like, same thing. Like, especially having friends there and doing it, and because then you can kind of rib each other when you get something wrong, and there's that inner...
Like, I'm the one that solved this while everyone else sat here for 20 minutes.
And I especially remember one moment of... I think it was you. You started doing something, but it was like completely wrong. And then we're just like, all right, Adrian, no, you just can't have this anymore. We're actually going to do it for you.
We're going to take this away from you. Yeah. We're taking the ball and putting it into our ballpark and not yours.
Yeah, I don't Anyhow.
Anyway.
I will say, however, having played at 4, 5, and 6 players, even with it being 6 friends, I feel like when you get to the higher player counts, like there was a lot of times when 3 clue cards would come out and they'd get scattered and everybody grabbed them, and like maybe those 3 clue cards ended up being 2 new riddles that you're trying to solve. Somebody on the other side of the table would solve something and they'd be like, oh yeah, okay, we solved this, it's good. While I'm working on a puzzle over on my end with like whoever's on my end of the table. And so I felt like I was missing out on some of the puzzles. Like, a lot of times you'd still be like, wait, what? So you solved it. So what happened? Like, how did you solve it? And it's not like I don't trust that you solved it right. I just want to know what that riddle was and how it worked.
I remember one instance where I was like, as soon as the card came out, it just whatever clicked in my mind. I was like, oh, it's this. And I'm like, Megan, get this. And they're like, wait, what are you talking about? I'm like, just get this. And I'm like, what are you saying?
Yeah.
And a lot of times you get enough clues to some puzzles where you can kind of make the dots connect without like having the final piece, and that final piece comes out, you take it, it's done, and then it just moves on. Mm-hmm. And be like, oh yeah, I did the work on this earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But so that is the one downside of playing with more people that I will say gets in the way that a little bit is that the more people you add, the less likely you're going to be involved in every single puzzle. So if that's really important to you, that you want to experience everything in this game, play with less people. If you're more interested in having a fun time with your friends and you don't care if you miss a puzzle or two here or there.
You don't need 100% of that content.
Yeah, and if you figure that the tough puzzles, everybody's going to chime in, you're going to, like, the tough ones, you're right, everybody's going to get a look at those because it's going to get passed around the table like, shit, I can't think about this. What do you guys think? Like, I can't figure this out.
And just like escape rooms, that's what happens.
Yeah.
Like, not everyone has every piece of it because, I mean, normal, like, real life escape rooms, there's a ton of content and puzzles enough for everyone. And that's how they design them. Where this one, but for this, I would say don't believe the BGG ratings where it's like 90% don't recommend this at 6 players. Like,
I still had plenty of fun at 6.
Yeah, I would just say
it just depends on how much you want to be involved in every single puzzle.
Yeah, and if you have people that you know.
If you really want to personally solve every single puzzle,
that's what singles for.
Yep, play it solo. You know,
or 2-player.
Even 2-player, you can team up enough. But yeah,
I think this would be a fantastic couples game.
Oh yeah, definitely.
So, and then, Jeff already talked about that this game is super widely available. So if you have enjoyed this little preview before we ruin everything.
Most recently, super widely available.
Yeah. Well, quick question before you do that, though. Jeff, did you have a favorite out of the 3?
I think I like the lab the most.
Okay. Adrian, what about you?
I do not have a favorite out of 3. I enjoyed all 3 of them immensely. Like, the puzzles were similar enough between the 3 that I got the same, like, the things I enjoyed about each one, I enjoyed in each one without ever feeling like they were just too repetitive. So, yeah, I liked them all across the board.
And the only reason I really picked that one out is just because I liked the theme around it the most.
Okay.
So
science.
Okay.
Yeah.
What about you, Zach?
It was it's the
mentioned
Pharaoh's
earlier,
Tomb.
his was
Pharaoh's Tomb. Okay.
Pharaoh's Tomb for me, science for Jeff, and then Adrian can't make a decision.
Okay.
Adrian likes them all.
As is tradition.
Yeah.
Takes the most, the longest on his turns.
Yeah.
Go to hell. So all 3 of these that we personally played are all available for right around $10. The 3 newest ones are all available for right around $15, depending on where you go online to pick them up. Yeah. They're all solid
for
games.
all, like, some of them were down almost to like $7 to $8.
Yeah, like Abandoned Cabin is $8.77 on Amazon, $7.26 for Pharaoh's Tomb, $8.77 for Secret
There's
Life.
no
Definitely
reason,
worth picking those up.
For sure. Like, even if you're like, I gotta never play this game ever again, $8. It's like
I will say that
3 gallons of gas.
I will chime in and say one. So another podcast that I absolutely love and highly recommend everybody listen to is the Perfect Information podcast. And they bring up a good point about these games. Ben over there, he said he had a very hard time getting into these because he struggled to get past the sheer waste and excess of these games. Like, you're spending $8, which, I mean, the physical components are probably worth $8 almost. The printing and the cardboard. And then you're just, I mean, they're useless afterwards. Like, Zach, you're keeping them to put on your shelf, but you can't play them again once they're played. Like, you will ruin the components in them enough that they are done. So,
and it's specific. It's not like some legacy games where you're like, I'm just gonna tell you.
You can't do this.
You can't do that.
I mean, if you really committed to not destroying the game as you played, and you had to scrap pieces of cardboard and paper that you could match to the things and
a copy
draw
printer,
everything out, like
put it on the scanner,
it's going to be not very feasible. And considering the production, the shipping, all of everything that goes into getting these games in front of you, I can understand if there are some people who have a problem with the sheer, like, Western style of, like, just throwaway product, paper plates that, like, there's no reason why you can't just use a regular plate sometimes. Like, everything doesn't need to be disposable.
Yeah.
I can understand if people have a problem with that, and some people might.
Yeah.
I personally
some people just can't get over that.
Yeah. These aren't environmentally conscious games.
West
That's what I'm getting at. Yeah. So that wraps up our initial review here of the Exit games. Our MHGG reviews version of this. Now we are going to move on to
I mean, so Spiel DR 2017, exit the game,
Yes,
correct?
correct.
Better or worse than Terraforming Mars? That's the real
Terraforming Mars is way better.
I think Terraforming Mars was robbed by this award.
Well, no, I totally understand why the award went to Exit and not Terraforming Mars, and you even said it yourself, Jeff.
I do
This
now.
is a game that you can give to anybody. It is like Spiel DR has always been about family-friendly accessibility.
Yes.
And this is a game, like you said, somebody puzzle adjacent. They don't even need to be board gaming adjacent.
Do you do crosswords?
Yeah.
Like, that's definitely skills that would be useful.
So no, I get why these won. I do prefer personally Terraforming Mars. If I was on the voting committee, I would have voted for Terraforming Mars.
Yes.
But maybe that's why I'm not on the voting committee. So
I was just throwing it out there. I had to talk about Terraforming Mars at least once.
Yes.
Because this beat Terraforming Mars for the Spiel DR.
Yep.
And
I think it's like how The Martian won Best Comedy
yeah.
in I think
You know
the
what?
Golden Globes.
I can't wait for Thor Ragnarok to win Best Comedy
Right?
at
Yes.
the Golden Globes next year.
yeah, so that wraps up our spoiler-free review portion. Real quick, before we go ahead and ruin everything for you guys, we figured we'd do our normal episode wrap-up stuff here. So those of you who don't want spoilers can just check out and be done and not miss anything. And those of you who want spoilers can go nuts.
After we finish talking about all the stuff.
Yeah. So if you would like to get a hold of us, you can always email us. Jeff, where can they do that?
Emails at milehighgameguys.com.
That is correct. You can join our Board Game Geek Guild, guild number 2731, where Zach posts fantastic little write-ups for whatever episode or discussion or review we're focusing on for the week.
I love them all. All of you should read them.
They are really good. So go over there and join our guild. You can also follow us on Facebook and Instagram /MileHighGameGuys. You can also follow us and interact with us over on Twitter. I tweet under @MHGameGuys.
I am Zach_MHGG.
And I'm Jeff_MHGG.
And finally, we have a public Slack channel that anyone can join if you want to participate in the tearing me down that Zach and Jeff do on the regular, as long as all of our other
most of our friends also do.
And all of the other listeners who are part of the Slack channel.
Yeah.
It's just a group ripping on Adrian.
Hashtag fuck Adrian.
Yes.
We don't actually have a fuck Adrian on there.
You don't have a fuck Adrian channel. I'm surprised there's not a fuck Adrian.
Isn't that general?
Paul is going to make that immediately. That's general. That's announcements.
Just-
Announcements
Yeah.
is just a spam of fuck Adrian.
Yeah.
But we talk about all kinds of things.
Yeah, we have non-board game related stuff on there too.
Yes.
If you just
Beer,
love
video games.
hearing us talk about video games.
There's a video game channel on
Yeah.
our Slack. There's a Murder Island channel. Not that you guys play
Been
Murder
inactive.
Island anymore. But yeah.
I've been so
I'm
busy.
sure. I'm very sure once they add that new map, we'll definitely.
Oh yeah.
There is also on our Slack a Patreon only channel for those of you who choose to go over to patreon.com/milehighgameguys and financially support the show. And that channel features awesome things like Zach taking pictures of stuff that we're doing while we record, like the beers we're drinking, or weird pictures of me while I'm trying to talk into a microphone. And
I think I posted my perfect medium over medium egg on Twitter. I don't think I put that on the Patreon only.
yeah, I can't remember where you posted. I remember seeing it because I had just finished eating eggs, and I was like, mine weren't that good.
Oh, it was so good. Like the most fantastic over medium egg I've ever had in my life.
This is Denver Biscuit Company, right?
Denver
Yeah.
biscuit, I think. It's fantastic.
Anyway, you're getting distracted. So if you want to join the Patreon only channel on Slack, go to patreon.com/milehighgameguys. Take a look at the reward tiers we have. Look at the goals we're trying to get for the show. See if those things align with what you're interested in, and maybe throw us a couple bucks here and there. You know,
As long as it's not $1, because we will rip into you.
yes, but I feel like anybody who listens to the show, appreciates the love that goes into ripping into each other, right? Because that's why
Absolutely.
you only rip into me because you love me, right, guys? Right? That's why you do it, right?
I rip into the $1 donators because I love them so much.
Mhm.
But what about me?
So we're moving on to spoils, right?
But yeah, so that is all the ways you can get a hold of us, interact with us, and support the show. Thank you, everybody, for listening to the review portion of this episode. If you don't care about spoilers for the individual exits, which, seriously, if you haven't played and think you might someday, then turn this shit off now. Because the spoilers are going to ruin everything for you. Thus, Mile High Game Guys ruin the exit series. Literally. So
I feel bad for all the people that turned it off right when you said now, so they missed that.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, everyone else that knows that or has already played is getting like bonus material now?
Sure. That's how we roll.
Yeah.
So moving right along, let's dive into these. Let's go through them in the order we played them. Sound good?
Yeah. So
starting with the abandoned cabin.
Yes. I love the fact that it actually used the fucking box.
Yes. So one of the coolest things, the big reason that these are truly one-time use is every single one of them has used key components in an interesting way.
So the only one that didn't was the lab.
It still used.
It didn't use the box.
It didn't use the box, but it still used
It still used the journal
in a way that, and it was an interesting twist because we played the first two that used the box, but like none of them used the journal. So people were like, "Oh, let's willy-nilly cut up the journal," and then it was like, "Oh shit, we needed the journal."
Was it people? Was it not just Zach fucking up the?
Really
hey, I thought we were doing this module. Yeah,
we are.
So,
no, but first, fuck you.
Yeah, that's fine.
We want to get that out of the way early and often.
I mean, I will defend myself when we get to the science lab. Okay.
So the abandoned cabin starts off. The initial
you get lost in the woods, and then you go to a cabin, and then you wake up the next morning, and then it's like, we're locked in the fucking cabin now, and now we have to escape.
And the journal initially that you thumb through there has a diagram of the layout of the cabin, and then a picture of one wall of the cabin.
Because you can't turn around.
Yeah, apparently not initially. So one of the things that was interesting that you guys did in this playthrough, because this is the one that I moderated while y'all played, and the thing that was impressive to me that you did immediately was Ant had everybody pull the staples out of that initial rule book to then spread the pages all around. That was something that never occurred to anybody in the 3 games that went on at HeavyCon, at least not that I saw. We all just
immediately disassemble the rule book,
which
everything,
which then became just a thing that we did in all future games. It was like immediately like, hey, before you start reading that, disassemble the book and hand out everything except what you're reading.
Just shred it.
Which I have no problem disassembling the book. I have a problem with disassembling the book while I'm trying to read the fucking intro. So you guys are working on puzzles while I'm still reading the fucking intro.
It wasn't even that I was trying to work on puzzles. It was just, I want to start cutting this while you're talking. So when you're done talking, we can actually start.
Yeah. But that, I think in a lot of ways that helped, like being able to pass pages around like separately from each other, or like later on when you need page 3 and page 7, instead of flipping back and forth to reference them, you just lay them right next to each other. So that was an interesting little like local meta that we had going that then carried on for each game that I think helped in a lot of ways going on later in the games.
I'm sure a lot of people that were listening to this were like, man, that would have been a lot easier if we just fucking shredded that journal. So all the wheels are different in each one. This one had numbers and colors on the wheel.
Yep.
Which the colors never really came up in the abandoned cabin.
Yeah, I don't remember them coming up.
This is the only one with actual numbers.
Yeah.
All the
everything
other ones
else
ended up being symbols that you then had to figure out what symbol matched to what number. And
which is why I think this is a good intro one.
Yeah,
because you don't
definitely
have
the
to
best intro.
worry about that.
Yeah.
And that's why I think the order we played them actually worked really well, because this one introduced you to the wheel. Pharaoh's Tomb, which we'll get to in a second, introduced you to the having to solve what symbols match what numbers. And then the secret lab, midway through the game, those symbols changed.
Yeah.
Like what numbers they related to. You know, so there was a very natural progression in how the wheel changed as you used it.
So the thing that I wanted to talk about that I didn't mention before because of spoilers was that when Adrian was moderating this, there's a dominoes puzzle that me and Megan were trying to figure out. And, you know, we wrote all the numbers down and we're like, okay, we're trying to relate these things. And we're like, oh, we'll put this is number 1, this is 2. But we just had written them down. And then Adrian's just like handed me the scissors. And then we're like, oh shit, because there's a bunch of dominoes. We're like, we just cut them out, and literally,
We could just, you were very excited. We could just cut them out.
yeah. And then I cut them out, and then I immediately was like, okay, this goes here, 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 here. We're done.
And the puzzle solved.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That being able to physically manipulate these things makes it a lot easier, which is nice when I realize it's like, oh yeah, I can just cut those out to be able to do that. It's not just the picture.
Yeah. Now, abandoned cabin, you know, because the area that I was thinking of when I was like, that's not what I was thinking about. Abandoned cabin, it wasn't nearly as big of a deal as it ended up being later in Pharaoh's tomb that we'll get to. But the remove the insert and like, oh shit, there's an entire another page hidden under the insert. And then also later on the clue, which the BGG response will tie into about, you know, oh, I was looking for a brocade, which really is barcode, you know. So like the fact that the actual UPC barcode number on the game is a component of the game that solves a puzzle is nuts.
Yeah, that was a clue that came out that immediately said, it's like, look for and it had it scrambled. It's like basically it unscramble and then look for this. I immediately looked at it and I was like, I was like, okay, I see code in there. What's a RAB code? No, barcode. And then I was like, oh shit, that's a UPC. And so I was like, Megan, give me the barcode. I should have said, give me the box. I was like, give me the barcode. And she's like, what? And I'm like, give me the barcode. What are you talking about? I was like, the fucking box thing.
No, with the box. What's in the box?
But I think that was awesome. Like in this game that they had both of those, like the, hey, look under the insert and oh shit, there's more. And then also, hey, the barcode's a part of this puzzle.
Everything in this box is part of the game.
Which is another great reason why Abandoned Cabin makes a good intro one of these, because of the way it lightly introduces the fact that more than just the cards, more than just the book are used to solve puzzles. Because then that plays in, like, each of the other games, I think, plays that up a little bit more in slightly different ways that, hey, these things that aren't what you'd normally think of as helping to solve the puzzle help solve the puzzle.
Yes.
So we wrote down on the back. So on the back of these, we didn't talk about this in the pre-show, which we maybe should have a little bit more. There's a score sheet basically on the back where you write down everybody who played, how long it took you, what score you got. And then it has a place for the toughest riddle and the most interesting riddle. And then who solved the toughest riddle. So Zach, what did we write down for? I think we wrote down riddle like number.
Okay, so first of all, it said how long it took us to do it. It was 56 minutes and 51 seconds.
Okay.
And we only used one help card, so we got 8 points for it, 8 stars. So the coolest riddle was the circle. So this one, whichever one, I got to figure out what the circle one is.
Circle.
Yeah, so
we use, I'll figure that out.
Whatever the circle riddle was.
Domino one. That's what it was.
Was it?
It was the domino. It was the multi-part one, the domino, the Einstein one, and then
oh, it needed like multiple puzzles.
It needed multiple puzzles. So you needed the dominoes, you had the Albert Einstein, and then we had to spell out the word journal on that card that made the 9.
Yeah, that's right. Because there was one where each of the cards, the hint cards, gave you a different one of the 3 numbers.
Yeah.
And that's where we talked about in the earlier thing. You know, we could have gotten to 2 of them and then brute forced it, but that takes a lot of the fun out.
Yeah. So this one, it was like we finished out the domino, and we were like, we have the number 4. We have no idea what it means, but we know 4.
Yeah.
So and that's where, me and Megan were just like, all right, so we got 4. No idea why. We just know that 4 is involved in some way at some point during this entire thing. And then the Einstein one came out, and I don't remember what that was.
Yeah, I don't remember the Einstein one either.
Yeah.
That was another one that I think was solved on the opposite side of the table.
Oh, that was me. Immediately, it was a multiplication thing where it's like the numbers are like, it was 8 plus 5 equals 313, and that's because 8 minus 5 is 3, and then 8 plus 5 is 13.
Okay.
And it was basically 3 ways of that, and the third one gave you one of the numbers.
Yeah.
And so that one, I looked at that, I saw 8. You get it, right, Jeff?
Yes.
Okay. You looked confused.
No,
well, it's hard to see without the card, like knowing what it is, like to visualize. But
I remember when that came out, you were like, blah, this is it.
Yeah.
That was a good example of I saw the card and immediately clicked what the answer was.
Yes.
So the hardest one was the square puzzle, which in Abandoned Cabin is you get a card that has 3 lines, like 3 rows of varying width ovals, and then like one that goes through all of them. So you could tell that like you needed to find 3 numbers, and then there was that other one that showed that like those 3 numbers would be multiple digits, and like if you align them in a certain way, you would get the right 3 numbers vertically. But the way they're kind of aligned on the card, it's not super clear. Like the one, it looks like, well, this maybe is just 1 number.
Yeah, it looks like it was going
clearly 3, and this other one looks like it goes in the middle of a 3-digit or of a 4-digit number. Like it was kind of awkward the way it was aligned. But then what ultimately clicks is once you find a couple things that tell you you're able to figure out what the crossways numbers are, because they have symbols adjacent to them that tell you what they are. Well, then you have separate, not that has no indication that it's related, and that's where you have to make the connection. It's a sheet of numbers, and then you find those first ones, and then it's easily to see like, oh, here's like there's only one spot where they all 3 intersect essentially, and so like that tells you what 3 numbers to use for that clue.
That we were able to figure out the basics of it, but then the application, we were like, these don't make sense because we were looking at it wrong. So once we realized, oh, it relates to this set of numbers, and then I was like, oh, I see this number here and here, and then we're like, oh, sweet, there's a circle right there. So
so what did you guys think of Abandoned Cabin overall?
I liked it. It was like, I think it was a great intro. It definitely felt the easiest of the 3.
Were there any other puzzles that stood out to you that were particularly of note that you really enjoyed, or that you thought was a good like example of how some of these mechanics work in later games?
It was definitely the domino one. I think the first one they were like, cut this shit out.
That there are ones that were like, you have to cut these out to be able to match them. There are a couple cards we had to cut out too, and so I just like that they're like, cut all this stuff, destroy it to make it fit what you're looking to find. So
there was one early on that, since I'd seen this solved before, watching you guys play, one of the ones where I was like, oh my god, you guys, the answer is right there. And it was part of that circle one, because it was like an X, a fleur-de-lis, and then a tree. And like the X on a different page was like, the date of this, when this painting was made. And so then everybody was looking at the painting, and they're like, okay, clearly this is the painting, like, because the X matches, and it has the same trees, and it has all the fleur-de-lis. So like, clearly this is part of it. And it took a while for anybody to be like, wait, count the fleur-de-lis, count the trees, like put those in those numbers.
Yeah. That was, I think that was one where other people were looking at that one for a while.
Yeah.
And then it took somebody new, which happened to be in this case me.
Yeah.
Of just like, what? Okay, I see that. Okay, I'm going to start counting all of these things.
I believe I'm the one that said, like, count how many there are. I told you to count.
I can't remember.
I definitely told you how, like how many fleur-de-lis are there?
Oh, if I did, then I didn't hear you.
Okay. That's fine.
It was mutually solved at the same time. So that was one that like stood out to me, like watching you guys play, where it's like, oh my god, guys, like seriously, like it has a fleur-de-lis symbol. How many fleur-de-lis are there? Like it should be easy. Then later on, there's another card that's like in similar vein to that one, where it tells you like a couple different things that you need to count to give you the 3 different numbers. It's like, to this direction, antlers, to this direction, porcelain dolls, and to this direction, flowers. And granted, you guys didn't struggle with this one at all, which was one of those things where it's like, damn you guys, because we struggled.
Oh, right, yeah.
Because it's antlers on one wall, porcelain dolls on another, and flowers on the third. And like, we went through and we're like, oh yeah, all right, well, there's all the antlers, count them, okay. There's all the porcelain dolls, count them. There's all the flowers, count them. We put them in, and it was like, wrong answer. And we're like, what the fuck? And we're like struggling with it. And I think that was where we used our one clue when I first played this. And it was like, oh, you need this other card. And we're like, well, shit. Well, that other card related to a thing that in the base book way at the beginning, there's a thing that says the flowers wilt in secret. Well, you need another card where you open one of the cabinets that's on the wall that has all the flowers. And sure enough, there's some more flowers hidden in the cabinet.
Yeah.
So until you've solved far enough along, you can't get that answer. Mm-hmm. And you guys solved it just way too quick.
Yeah.
Like
well, I think we didn't try to do it until we had that card already, answer, so it worked out okay.
But even still, the fact that somebody's like, oh, wait, no, this card is part of that wall. You need to put this in there. Like, Julie was right there on that one. But no, it was interesting seeing how different puzzles kind of got solved. Like, sitting back as the moderator, which I didn't feel nearly as useful as the moderator was for us when we played, where it was all 4 unique, like, new players who didn't know each other. Apparently, our group just works really well together.
Yeah.
I don't know.
The worst.
Yeah. After Abandoned Cabin, we played Pharaoh's Tomb. And we played it immediately after Abandoned Cabin. Pharaoh's Tomb, Zach, you said that was your favorite of them.
Yes.
What would you say was the big difference for you that made this one stand out?
Well, for this one, it was harder. Because especially once Adrian cracked the code of the numbers.
Shut up, Zach.
Yeah. That I think that immediately made me laugh was that so this one has symbols, it's based on symbols and there's a sort of code that you need to figure out. But really all it is you have to fold a piece of paper backwards.
Yeah. But this is also the one where the wheel is just a bunch of symbols not numbers in any way, shape, or form.
So even if you find numbers like you get 308 or whatever, you have no concept of what that is until you find out.
What is 3? What is 0? What is 8?
Which this was definitely an example of me, like, having just watched you guys overthink everything and being like, guys, you're overthinking this. We started this game, and then I immediately overthought the first fucking part of this.
You thought it was based on all the words or something, and I remember I see there's an arrow here, there's a line, and then an arrow that is like, is that supposed to be folded? And then someone folded it, and then there are a line of numbers basically immediately showing what it is.
Because the arrow looked different than the fold ones in the Abandoned Cabin, and so, like, in the paragraph that's on the page, there's highlighted letters in each sentence, or in almost each sentence, and those letters spell out numbers. And so I was like, all right, so they're like 9, 7, 8, 4, in some random gibberish order. And then like halfway down, there was a line with a little arrow that like moved it above. And so we thought initially, Megan and I, when we were solving this, was like, oh, so the highlighted letters spell out the numbers, and then the order is like the bottom 3 moved in front, and then that's the order. And we tried that, and it didn't work. and then Zach was like, oh, fold it in half, fold it in half. And I was like, no, that doesn't make any sense. And I handed it to somebody else, and I think it was Julie, and she folded it in half.
Yeah.
And then she was like, these line up perfectly and show numbers and symbols. And it was like, well, shit.
Yeah. And so it did come with a new hint card that was basically, if you have trouble with that, you can flip this over and it tells you how to solve it. So
fold this piece of paper.
Because the first one was just numbers, so it was easy. Both of the next two had cards that was like, this is a solo hint card that will just tell you what the codes relate to.
Yep.
Which we didn't end up using. We just saw what it was, there at the end. I liked that. I think one of my favorite moments of this one was there's a card in there that showed the layout of the temple. And then there was something else that said like, hey, you have to, impose the layout of the temple to solve this other thing. And it mentioned that you needed the blue original.
The blue original, yes.
And like, I was like, oh, there's got to be more coming. There's got to be another page. Like something's coming up.
And I remember you saying like, there's got to be a bigger one that's coming.
Yeah.
A bigger, like.
Well, because I was thinking back and at the time, like when we were talking about this, I couldn't remember what made me think of that. Because I was like, man, that must have been stupid. Like, where was I thinking? The Abandoned Cabin, you pull the insert out and there's another full-size sheet under there. So I was thinking something like that would direct us to pull that out. Well, so then Jeff's looking and he holds up the insert and he holds up the card. He goes, hey guys, what's that look like? And it was like, shit.
Yeah.
It was a map of like the tomb or something.
Yeah.
And it's like, you just take the insert out and lay it flat.
And it looks
then it's
like
like, oh,
and it's even divided in all the right places. And it's
that's
like
the map.
Perfectly corrugated so it tears easily. And then you had to tear the specific rooms off and then lay them on this grid to
get numbers.
Yeah, and then it left you ultimately, when you laid in the right order, it left you with just 3 numbers. That was easily one of my favorite puzzles in Pharaoh's Tomb.
Yeah. So one thing I do want to mention is that I know when we started this one, like we wanted to sort of look underneath we wanted to be like, oh, there was stuff in the insert underneath the insert before. Is that going to be the same thing here? And I know we were all like, maybe if there isn't, I don't want to look unless we.
Well, I was nervous like when Jeff started poking around with the insert because I thought he was going to just like look around. And I was like, dude, don't do that. Like that's come on. But then he was just like, without taking it out of the box, he held up the bottom of the box and he held up the card and was like, hey guys, what do these look like?
Yeah.
It's like, oh shit. And the insert's even blue, which the blue original.
Yeah.
And then you pull it out and then it was perfect. Which was another great example of them using the entire set of components to solve these puzzles. I can't imagine like who's coming up with these, like how, you know, Inca Brand and Marcus Brand are working together to design these games that incorporate the fucking insert into the game.
One of my favorite ones is it Nefertiti's game? So this is the one that's basically a mural of a painting, but there happen to be 3 inaccuracies that like
anachronistic.
Anachronistic to him. Julie had originally noticed it first. She was just like,
"Is that dude wearing a leather jacket?"
Yeah, and we're like,
"Yeah,
he is." And then we're just
is that dude having a fucking pistol?
He has a pistol, and then eventually noticed too. It was like, "There's a hat there too," and so
very Indiana Jones.
And so I circled all 3 of them. I'm like, that's got to mean something later. And then we had a clue later that said like poke through for Nefertiti's game, like poke through something. And then we're like, oh shit, I poked through them. And then there's a card that we hadn't used before that had a bunch of numbers. And we're like, let's see if this lines up. Aha. There it is.
Yeah.
So I like when you have stuff in the beginning that you're like, I know this means something, but I'm just missing some way to put this together. And then you get that, oh, you do this.
Click, and it all falls into place. Yeah.
You do the work before you actually know the solution.
Yes. So I want to say for this game for us, we finished this one in, was it really 79 minutes and 0 seconds, or was that just a...
No, that was around.
It may have been around.
All right. So we finished in about 79 minutes on this one. We used 1 help card as well. And so we had 7 stars. We said that the coolest riddle was the insert, which I definitely would agree with.
Yeah.
The trickiest one was the box lid.
Oh,
the end.
The end. It was the last one. Saying like you have to put number 11 back on, like, and basically number 11 was a rug. There's a picture of a rug, and it's like you're putting it back in the sarcophagus before you close it.
Well, and then you said the sarcophagus lid.
Yes,
before you
lid.
close it,
and it said lid, and so we were still trying to figure out what that meant. And then were you the one that pointed out lid?
Yeah, I was screwing around with the top of the box, or I wanted to see the box. Or
you
something
wanted to see the box, and then
that
as I was
clued you
handing you the box, I saw on the inside of the lid this thing, and I tried to take it back. Like, wait, no, I think I see something. You grabbed it from me, and I almost got pissed because you snatched it out of my hand. I was like, no, I saw something. I'm not saying shit until I get that back. And you looked at it for a little while, and I was like, I think I saw something. Can I see that again? And then I took it back. It was like, yeah, it definitely says like upper and lower on the top and bottom. And then
you immediately proceeded to put the box upside down.
Oh yeah, I did that too.
He put it upside down, but then he cut the box because.
Which, to be fair, I don't think we could have seen the letters on the sides.
I mean,
as well.
No, definitely not as well. But
this I think was almost a printing error, and it was an issue where if we were to have done spoilers earlier, component wise, the printing on this one along that box lid that you need to be able to see to align the pieces to solve this puzzle, the printing was shit.
Yeah.
You can't hardly see most of those letters.
Yeah. But I really did like it. So we ended up, after Adrian cut it, and then we realized like we wanted to match things up because it comes with the 2 strange objects, which were a red line and a green line. We had no idea.
They were identical.
And we were like, we have no idea. None of these symbols match any of the numbers.
They had all the hieroglyphics on them, which weren't even.
Yeah, they were essentially,
used.
they could have been just 2 sticks that you use and place one from the A on the left side of the box to the Q on the right side.
And then
the other one, and where they intersect. That tells you the symbol.
I like that they put all the hieroglyphics on there to really just fuck with you.
Yes. Oh, yes. No, yeah, that's I remember looking at all the ones on the wheel, and it's like none of these match any of what is going on.
Well, and we were trying to solve because the clue was like, green is P to, or like B to P, and the other one's like this, and we were like, well, this one like is 1 more than is the number of things, and this is 2 more, and then this one's 3 less, and
then once we figured out the lid, we're like, oh, now it makes a lot more sense. And then it was really cool to put it together. You have the thing in there, and then it made this, this X pattern. We're like, okay, here. We solved it, and that was
the final one.
That
and
was
we
the
were
final
like,
one,
We're done. Yeah.
Yep.
It's over.
Yeah.
That was the most frustrated I was though. Like I said, like Jeff was like, "Hey, yeah, let me see the box," and like I handed him the bottom, and I was handing him the top, and as I was handing him the top, I saw some writing that I was like, "Oh shit, that's what it is." And then he was like, "Nope, let me see that," and he took it from me, and I was like,
Yep.
And proceeded to put it in upside down and cut it
"Yeah,
up.
I did put it in upside down."
And
Luckily, putting it upside down was an easy fix because the way they
Yes.
were rotated, like it only swapped one number.
Yeah. And so one thing I will say is I think, and it might be because we did not write the numbers onto the wheel.
That definitely took a little longer.
It definitely, like probably at least 10 minutes overall. We're like, okay, the number's 308. Okay,
what's
well,
a
what does
three,
that
what's
mean?
an O, and what's an 8? It's a scarab thingy and a praying lady and the Sphinx.
Yeah, and this was the first one where we were like stuck. I felt like this was the one where like super stuck on something for like 15 minutes. I don't remember which one it was. Do you?
Folding the piece of paper to
No,
find
it
out
wasn't
the
folding the piece of
hieroglyphs.
paper. I do remember we were stuck for a really long
I think it was
time.
the one, whatever we needed to get through to get to the insert. I think that's the one that took
Yeah,
the longest.
it was something relatively early on. It was before we moved into the other room because this was the first one that introduced
Yeah.
multiple rooms
Yeah.
as well. And I don't remember what the puzzle was, but it was the same thing that happened to us. Well, happened to you guys in Abandoned Cabin for sure, and I think might have happened when I played, where it was a puzzle relatively early on that was hard, and you felt like you were smashing your head against the wall, and then you flip the card, and it's like, all right, you have everything you need to solve it, and then that just kind of clicks your brain over to this like idea that, hey, I just need to keep working on this a little bit. Like the answer is here. And, that helps you somehow miraculously solve it.
Indeed.
But yeah, I don't know. I can't remember which
It was
one
the one
it
with
is.
ice cream. I remember that.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
Yeah, there was like an ice cream cone on the floor,
So
and
that
it had
was,
to do with like the journal listing of like, I love ice cream, and
It was like we had to figure out ice cream cone or something like that, and it was
Something about the way, like, because it ended up being.
it was that one.
Yeah. So it was so we'd seen one similar in Abandoned Cabin to this, and the transitions on this episode, I'm sorry, everybody, I'm just going to apologize now, are probably going to be kind of fucked.
Yeah.
As we rifle through things to find what we're talking about. So it has kind of almost like in Sura where like the paths cross and then come in, and then like you can tell there's a blank spot that will determine how the things move out of it. And it says C as in, but then there was IKECT. And then we had a clue that mentioned this little like symbol on one of the pages that was like an ice cream cone that like had fallen down and the cone was sticking up. And the tricky thing, I don't even remember hardly how we actually solved it, where the C as in
It was
what played into it. Like, because I felt
the
like we
orientation
had one,
of the piece that needed
that's
to go
right.
in
So,
there.
so that put the C up, and then you spelled out ice.
Because of the
because it was
ice
an
cream
ice
cone
cream cone.
that was in the other picture.
But there was nothing that really ever told you that it should be ice. Like, it was still very.
When I think of ice cream, the first thing that comes to my head is ice.
Yeah, it was a weird one, and it was the one we put down for the hardest because that tore us up for so. That was the only clue we looked at, and it was another one where it was like, all right, well, we have everything we need, but fuck, I feel like we're still missing something.
It's like, there's something on the floor over there.
And that was the one
ice
I
cream?
solved that was like just a random like.
ice.
I was like, well, it's an ice cream cone. C as in cream cone, so ice.
yes.
ICE, and it was really like we solved it like what are ICE in that order. All right, Jeff, put these in. Like, fuck it, why not?
yeah.
And he's
And
like,
it
oh
was-
yeah,
yeah.
that's the answer.
That got us a card.
Like, oh wow, cool. Glad I solved that through some
Yeah.
deductive reasoning. But yeah,
That's Pharaoh's tomb.
Yep.
Pretty much, top to bottom.
pretty much. Which brings us to Secret Lab here finally, and to wrap things up. So we played Secret Lab last.
A day later.
A day later. So we played Abandoned Cabin, and I kind of sat out of it to introduce everybody and talk everybody through it, which for Abandoned Cabin ended up being me overviewing, and then Jeff, Zach, my girlfriend Megan, and then Blood Bowl Ant and his girlfriend Julie, who all played it. And then when we were talking about moving on, like, okay, we finished Abandoned Cabin. Like, what do we want to play next? And it was like, oh, I've heard Secret Lab is the worst, so let's play Pharaoh's Tomb. This happened to work out because I do think Pharaoh's Tomb is the next best, like, one for a progression of mechanics and puzzle complexity.
Mm-hmm.
I don't agree that Secret Lab is the worst. I mean, Jeff, you even mentioned earlier you think Secret Lab was your favorite.
Yes.
But so we played Abandoned Cabin and Pharaoh's Tomb same day. And then the next day, we played Secret Lab, and it was me, Megan, the two of you, Zach and Jeff. And then David came over. And so we played a 5-player game to finish out Secret Lab. And so we dove into this one now right away out of the gate. Because we had just played Pharaoh's Tomb, we open it up and we see that this one spells out much more clearly what the numbers and symbols align to. So we grabbed the decoder wheel and wrote all the numbers on it.
Well, so what we did first is there are the numbers that, like, they literally go from 0 to 9, and then right on top of it are the different colors. And I just wanted to, like, I wanted to be a little careful because it's like the last one was a little bit more complicated than that.
So we solved one puzzle.
Let's solve one puzzle with this. If it actually works, then we know that those are actually right.
Yeah. So then we wrote all the numbers down just on the decoder wheel, like adjacent to their matching symbol, which worked great for the first half of the game. And then at some point, there's a card that says, in each new room, 0 through 9, left or right, it's as easy as it sounds, or something like that. Like, it was much more poetic, like rhyming riddle.
The numbers changed.
And so basically we moved into another room and the numbers changed. And I remember, like, David was like, no, the numbers wouldn't change in the middle. That'd throw everything off. We got this card in the first half and this card in the second half. That doesn't make any sense. How would we solve it? It was like, well, because now we're solving it in the second half, so we use the second half numbers.
Yeah.
But yeah, the numbers totally changed.
Yeah.
Which then threw us off because, and one of the later puzzles I solved and I thought I had it all figured out, and we transcoded it back into the original symbols.
Mm-hmm.
And they were like, nope, that's wrong. And I was like, what? But that's the only thing that makes sense.
Use
And
the
we
new ones.
Fucked around with it for a little bit, and it was like, wait, no, use the new numbers.
Yep.
Use the new numbers, and then that solved it.
Mm-hmm. So I know on this one, so the first one, we learned to cut, it's like, oh, okay. And then the second one, the Pharaoh's Tomb, is like, okay, now I'm getting comfortable with things that we have to cut out. And so on this one, I was immediately like, oh, this looks like this looks like it has to be orientated in some way. I'm going to fucking cut it up. And so it actually fucked us over sort of near the end. But
well, so this was the first
the
one
thing you
where
cut
the
up
journal.
was like the cover.
Yeah, so the journal, the other ones look more like a journal. Like they look like a dusty notebook in an abandoned cabin, or like a archaeologist like leather-bound notepad. This one looks like a scientist like notepad.
Doodles.
The front and back are covered in equations and symbols and things. And I'm like,
geometry.
I feel like these are useful. And you guys went to cut them up, and I was like, dude, don't. Like, the front and back might be useful. And it wasn't in any of the other ones. I was like, well, yeah, but I'm ready for a curveball.
The main reason I was fine with it was because I cut it up into, it was just 6 pieces, and with 6 pieces, there's no way I couldn't put it back together if we needed to locate something.
Yeah.
Little did we know we needed to fucking protractor the shit out of the cover.
It's like, you sons of bitches.
You motherfucker.
Why can't it be on the other corner? The other side I didn't cut up.
Yeah.
So I did really appreciate that they threw you a curve in this one in a couple ways. One, they changed up so especially if you play them in this order. In Pharaoh's Tomb, towards the end of it, we were like, man, you know what we should have done? When we first figured out the code for like what symbols, what number, we should have wrote those down.
Yeah.
So that was one of the first things we did in science lab. And then halfway through, they were like,
these
nope.
all changed.
And then we got used to like, okay, there was a hidden piece of paper in abandoned cabin. And then, Pharaoh's Tomb, we tear up the insert, and then there's things written on the inside cover. And so we're all geared up to use the box in Secret Lab. And you never use the box.
Never use the box.
But all of a sudden,
or the insert.
You need that cover to be in one solid piece.
And
it
so
wasn't.
I was immediately looking outside the box. When there's a card that comes up that's just like, you have to poke through something And that was literally the only,
Poke
it was
through
number
the
3.
center.
Just poke through the center. First thing I do, I took my pencil and I poked right in the center of the insert. I was like, "Wha-pow!"
Wow.
And then they're like, "Why
Except-
did you do that?" And I was like,
If you look, that's not in the center.
"I know,
at all.
whatever. They can't see it. No, I just poked into the
I'm
center.
gonna take a picture, post it on Twitter.
This is the center.
This is Zach's
I'm
idea
not
of
saying the center
centering.
of the center. I'm saying this. This is the center of the insert part.
How useful was that?
No, it wasn't useful at all.
Zero.
No, I understand it. I did that, and you guys are just
Okay.
like, okay. And I was
You were
like,
just like, I just wanted to stab.
You
the
broke
box.
the pencil when you did that.
nah,
too.
whatever. We had other ones, but the second one it was just like, I was like, wait, take apart the decoder because it's like we have to poke through it, and then you're like, you took through part of the decoder. It's just like nothing's in here, Zach. And
There's
I'm like,
nothing in
oh
here.
damn it! All right, sorry.
You fucked up everything, Zach, in science
Sorry,
secret
I was
lab.
Yeah.
There was like a minute hand of a clock that we
Yeah,
had to.
and I was like, "Oh, that's got to go into the decoder somehow."
I thought that would have been interesting.
Yeah.
but,
Which,
If there's one change I can make, just talking about these things, like now that we're full open on spoilers and like we're talking about what the different. So in Abandoned Cabin, the secret objects were like a green, red, and yellow, or green, red, and blue little rectangle with a certain hole punched out, and when you align them
Yes.
on a particular card, it revealed 3 numbers or letters. I don't remember which. In Pharaoh's tomb, it was the 2 long things that you used to make the X's for the final puzzle. In Secret Lab, there's 2 different ones that work in different puzzles. One of them was a card that when you place it over certain things, it shows certain beakers that are full, which was an interesting puzzle, but I
Yeah.
don't really remember how we solved it.
colors.
It was
lucky.
colors and matched, like the only ones that actually matched things.
But I mean, we even got lucky, like the
Yeah.
way we did it, like 1, 2, 3 versus 1, 2, 3.
Yeah,
the
the
other
order-
direction.
the order was weird.
We got kind of lucky on that. But it was that one, and then also that pinwheel card. The problem is when you're opening these boxes and you're setting everything up, like even in that initial instruction that tells you how to play, it gives a component overview and it mentions secret objects and shows what they are. I almost wish they were like in a shitty paper folder thing, so you don't see
More
what
hidden
they
than
are.
what they are.
you just like
until
open
you're
up
ready.
one. Yeah.
Yeah. That would be the only thing I would change.
That'd increase the
really
cost.
I mean, very minutely, yes.
I mean, well, it's because then it'd have to be unpunched, or it'd already have to be punched.
Yeah.
Because if playing for time and stuff, you don't want to have to waste.
It would. And again, because these are completely disposable, I understand
Yeah.
where they didn't do that. But that is a thing where, like, you see these when you're opening the box and you're like, well, this is going to come into play at some point.
But
You
I know,
don't know how
For me,
or
yeah, for me,
anything.
every time I looked, I'm like, okay, something's gonna happen. I don't know what they're gonna be used for, and I admit I don't try and think about them too much. I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, there's these 2 line things. I don't know what they do. All right, just throw them away until I can actually use them.
You're better than that. Better at that than I am, Mr. I try not to remember the individual cards in Twilight Struggle.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, I saw this thing. Let me forget everything about this thing.
I could never use this to my advantage at any point in the future.
Zach, you're going to do really well if you ever stumble upon a government conspiracy. Like, you'll just be like, hey, pay me, and I will forget all about this. And you will actually forget all
You'd be
about
like,
it.
don't even pay me because I'll probably
Yeah.
forget anyways.
Yeah, I've accidentally forgotten more conspiracies than you can even comprehend.
But Secret Lab was my favorite, mostly as a theme. It was like chemicals and research, and then also the huge curveball of like the spinner wheel,
Hmm.
and now it's completely different
Yeah.
at the second half.
I know for me, like the trickiest one that we had to do was the flags that it deal with like cracking something, so trying to figure out.
Yeah, there was a bunch of flags from a bunch of different countries with colors, and you had to like it was something about stacking
Yeah, because
them.
there was a
and
thing like
then
colorful countries stacked or something, and there was a space
stacking colorful countries.
and it even told you what order to stack them. But then later on, you get another card that has 3 new flags, and you clearly need to. So the flags, the initial flags, had a value. Like Russia had like 4, 2, 2, and it was like this totals to 8. Netherlands had like 3, 1, 2, so it totals to 6. The other
Yeah.
one was like 4, 0, 2, totals to 6. So you knew that each of the 3 bars of color had a value and totaled to something. And stacking them was like, it told you to stack them and you knew what order, but
it's like, were we supposed to stack the cards? But there's a bunch
That
of
one,
ones
that's
on
one of the
the-
ones where you guys saw. I still have no idea how you did it because I wasn't like I was. Just,
oh, so ultimately what ended up happening is like, so do we have?
Yeah, we have it right here. Like one of the flags.
So
like these are the 4 different flags.
Yeah.
So one of the flags was red, green, yellow, and so you did 2, 1, 3 for that flag. 3, 4, 5, 6. So that flag was 6, but it used the bottom 1 of this one and the top 2 of the other one. Hence stacking.
Oh, okay. So all of like the other 3 flags were in here.
We're in
exactly.
like in between the.
Okay,
other
that makes more
flags.
So
sense.
for
then.
those of you who can't actually see, let me describe a little bit more what's actually happening here.
I had to
Makes sense.
explain it to Zach. Now you can explain to everyone
So
else.
there's a sheet of paper that's in the journal of this one, and it says stacking colorful countries, and it has Russia, Gabon, Netherlands, and Bulgaria, and it's got room for the 3 bars that are on all 4 of those flags. And so like Russia is white, blue, red. Gabon is green, yellow, blue. Netherlands, red, white, blue. And then Bulgaria, white, green, red. Well, then later on, we come across another card that has 3 different countries. And it shows what color their flags are. And then has question marks underneath for the value. So we tried forever to figure these out. Like, we were trying to figure, like, okay,
add
so
all the blues together, add all
Yeah.
the whites together, maybe the blues on the top or the other ones on the bottom.
essentially, we were way overthinking this until I don't remember what clicked it for me, but I was like, wait.
I was like, it has to do
These-
something with stacking. And
Yeah, and that triggered for me that, hey, like, so this flag here is, so the 3 that were on the card are Azerbaijan, Venezuela, and Sierra Leone, and then Sierra Leone is flipped upside down. But so Azerbaijan is blue, red, green. And we were, like Jeff said, we were trying to add, like, all right, well, what's the value of all the blues? Like, how can we
translate
the actual value of the blues that are on these? Like, what's the number of blues that are shown? Like, all this shit. And then finally I realized that, well, if you're looking for blue, red, green, Russia's second one is blue, its third one's red, and it's stacked on top of Gabon, which the first one of Gabon is green. So that's blue, red, green. Boom, there's the values. And then sure enough, that worked to solve it.
Yeah.
We took so fucking long on that fucking puzzle. Holy crap. Zach, you're making exuberant things while
Sorry,
looking at the
just one of
puzzle.
the solutions I didn't realize. Do you remember that one where I wrote down units, silver, and salt?
Yes.
And it removed things. But when you put them all together, it spelled universal.
Oh,
Didn't even realize that.
didn't either.
Yeah.
Which that one was interesting to me because the way that puzzle was written out, like you solved it almost immediately, like fill in the blanks to do the words. But then there was like a big square under each of those 3 words. And then beneath that square was an additional like 3 small rectangles with one like blocked out, like don't use the, which actually I think was the use this one.
Yes. Yep. That's also why I didn't realize it, because I literally only wrote that letter.
Well, and when you were first putting that all together, and like when we got to the point where you had enough information to actually solve it, and you were like, oh yeah, it's units minus these couple letters, so it's these 3.
Mm-hmm.
And David was like, there's got to be more to it than that because we haven't used that big box at all yet. And then the code worked, and it was like, nope, I guess that's all there is to it. Like, it feels like there was more on that puzzle that needed to be.
I mean, sometimes they're red herrings. Like, there's a ton of these boxes and then red colored in boxes, and maybe they had something to do with it, but maybe that's only there for people that overthink the shit out of stuff.
Yes. So, yeah. I don't know. Is there anything else you guys want to tag on spoiler wise?
No, I think this one was my least favorite just because of the inventive ways that it used the box or in the insert on the last 2. This one, that it just used the cover. Now, like actually talking it out now, it's like, oh, it keeps moving your perspectives and stuff like that. So you're not looking. I really enjoyed that part, and when it didn't do that, I was like, oh, why didn't it do it? That sucks.
Those are fun things to happen, but I thought the more like difficult mechanics it threw in there of like changing around the entire wheel to try and have to solve puzzles was also super interesting.
Yeah, I'm torn. I think Abandoned Cabin would be my least favorite if I could know that. If I could pick the 2 and then have my mind wiped to where I didn't know what the answers were, I would pick either Secret Lab or Pharaoh's Tomb.
Yeah.
However, I think Abandoned Cabin, like for the intro one, like the first of these, it's great for that. I really like some of the stuff in Pharaoh's Tomb. there's a lot of really cool puzzles, and there's some cool kind of thematic things that fit there. But I think I got to be with Jeff. Like, now that we've talked them through, like, I like the insert part of Pharaoh's Tomb more. Like, that was brilliant. Like, that moment of Jeff being like, hey guys, this card's like layout of the thing, what's that look like?
Yep.
As he held up the insert, and we all went, oh shit, give me that insert. That click was amazing. That was probably one of the greatest moments that I had in any of the 3 games. But then it, like, thinking of things in the science lab, like the numbers shifting, like right after we learned in Pharaoh's Tomb, like, oh, we should have written them down, and then we do, and then immediately they're like, nope, those numbers aren't the same anymore.
Yeah.
Or like that flag stacking one that the answer was right there
But
the
literally,
whole time.
like that was like the first thing you did was write all of those down. And we had it.
You just couldn't connect it.
Yeah.
I think one problem with these games, and it's because you can only play it once, it's what basically however you felt at the end of the game is how you're going to always feel. That you can't go back and be like, let me try it again.
Yeah.
So that's why
If you have a bad play, you're fucked.
So after playing the abandoned cabin, it was like, oh, okay, I get what these are doing. Blah blah blah. The Pharaoh's Tomb, I was like, oh my, that had such a great ending of, it felt like it was coming together. It had the insert thing that we're talking about, and then you had to build the lid up, and it's like, oh, this is really cool. It's really inventive. And then this one, it was just like, oh, we have to do a circle and then follow it with my finger. Okay.
And there was other things.
I can see that.
Like there was chemical symbols that we had to match. And
yeah. So I that's why I think this one will still be my least favorite, just because it's how I felt after I got done playing, and that's really what that's what I have, and that's all I can have.
Do you think if you'd played them, say, Abandoned Cabin, Secret Lab, then Pharaoh's Tomb, would that have been a better progression for you in far of to where maybe you'd feel better about Secret Lab?
Maybe, but I definitely agree that I think for the decoder, the progression that we did was the best, because it was, oh, now this has symbols. Now this has symbols, but they change halfway through. So I don't think I would have changed it. I just,
okay,
cool. Yeah.
Jeff, any other thoughts or anything you want to add on?
I'm looking forward to playing those other 3.
Yes, definitely.
Fuck yeah. No, really excited for that.
I guess I just wanted to mention the BGG.
No, it's all over.
Thing,
You can't.
So
You just can't.
Right.
whatever.
You just can't talk anymore. That's it.
All right. Well, I think that kind of wraps up all of our thoughts and everything on this. Before we go,
I don't think any of us hated any of them.
No,
in any way,
I
shape,
love
or
that.
form.
I really enjoyed the entire thing.
series.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whether it was playing with 3 people I didn't really know that well at HeavyCon, or playing 2 of them with a bunch of my friends in my own dining room. Yeah, it was great all around. I liked it at 4, 5, 6. Didn't matter. I had a lot of fun. I really enjoyed them.
Don't take player counts on BGG to heart.
Yeah,
Not always.
Because Zach almost wanted to talk us out of playing that many.
Almost.
You're not.
I mean,
you're not wrong.
I was right there with him. Like, we were in the same room, and I was doing the same. Like,
You're like, should we play with this many? And I was like, there was like 2 people that voted.
But we have a BGG response that we didn't read earlier because it technically contains a spoiler.
Yes. So Eric, he says, this is for the abandoned cabin. I spent 10 minutes looking for a brocade in the abandoned cabin, because you're looking for a barcode.
Is that one up Lodo? Is that where it is?
Yes, right. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, that was the one where I like I said, I immediately was like, oh, okay, this spells, it's jumbled letters, and sometimes you can see it super simple. Other times you're always just like, nothing's clicking. What am I supposed to be doing? So I didn't even realize that that's what he said. When he looked in here, before we did, I was like, okay, what does he mean by brocade? And then barcode.
I was like, the barcode puzzle. So,
yep.
Idiot.
Yeah. Well, thanks everybody for tuning in. Hopefully, those of you who have stuck around this long have enjoyed us ruining Exit the Game series. This episode is quite a bit longer than we anticipated it being.
It's about an hour longer than I thought it'd be.
Yes.
About talking about 3-hour-long games that we played once.
Yeah.
Yeah. But hopefully you all have enjoyed it, and anybody who stuck around this long, hopefully you were down for having things ruined.
Or
and
people
spoiled.
went back and played them and then came back to hear all of our
Maybe.
sweet, sweet opinions.
Maybe. But thanks everybody for tuning in. As always, I have been your host, Adrian.
I am still Zach.
And I'm Puzzle Jeff.
And we'll catch y'all later. Bye.
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 Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Mile High Game Guys board gaming podcast. I am your host, Adrian.
I feel like you need to. I don't know.
And you just hit puberty.
Yeah.
Yeah. I meant to do it different intentionally.
He's talking about the movie.
Yeah, I know.
No.
No. So anyway, staying on track.
He's tearing.
No.
I've never actually seen it, so yeah.
I haven't either. So
Tearing me apart.
Yeah.
So
Lisa, I want to say.
That's the line.
Are we done?
We're never done.
Hi,
really.
Mark.
Yeah.
There you go.
Oh, hi.
Yeah. Oh, hi, Mark. Yeah, that's it. Okay, now we're done.
So,
Go ahead and write bullshit shit over there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
Punchboard Media,
where we all
bring something
to the table.
Pull up a chair at punchboardmedia.com.